if you only do one thing in your life, it would be for me to implore to you to understand what sugar is doing to our bodies, and that is something that you can action right away. Okay, so this is how big it is, and it makes me really angry that I didn't understand what sugar was. Like we think what sugar was is that table sugar that we buy, that we put in our coffees. You know, I never drank coffee, so I never put sugar in my coffee. I never ate cereal, so I never put sugar on my cereal, right? Like I didn't consume my sugar that way. Okay, so why did I get fat is one of the questions, right? Like, so sugar is poison for our bodies. Yes, for some people's bodies, they can handle it for a period of time. But what all the research and everything is pointing to is that sugar leads to type 2 diabetes, obesity. 13 types of cancer are associated with obesity and sugar. Okay? So the Cancer Council of Australia is saying that sugar is the leading cause of type 2 diabetes, obesity linking through, and sugar, direct correlation between sugar and esophagus cancer, and 13 types of cancers are prevalent because of the link with obesity, insulin resistance, which they're deriving is strongly driven by sugar. Okay, so that's the statement from the Cancer Council of Australia. The Cancer Council of Australia is advocating and lobbying the Australian government, as has already been done in the UK and passed in the UK, as sugar. Hey, Shell, how are you? Thanks for joining. So the Australian Cancer Council is actively lobbying the government to put in place a sugar tax. And they would like the sugar tax to be a 20% sugar tax. And this has already happened in the UK. And the data shows that if the sugar tax can come into effect, it's like from a 1.3 to 2% decrease in obesity in those countries, which has a major impact on the healthcare system and the amount of money that's being spent on the healthcare system, okay? So it's a huge correlation. So why isn't it more prevalent in, I guess, media? Why aren't changes being made commercially, you know, like in food products and things like that? Why does the message get buried? And I think that we all need to pause around that and consider why the message kind of gets buried. And through my, you know, I've been keto low carb since February. So February would be my 2-year mark. And prior to that, I did a lot of research. So I probably sat on the fence and did my research, you know, probably well in excess of 6 months prior to that. So I'd be coming up on 3 years of absorbing this lifestyle, the research, you know, for a substantial amount of my day. Hey, Christy, thanks for joining. For coming up on 3 years, okay? So I'm not of a science background. I like to listen to the science, but I'm not the best of spewing the science back up at people. So I do try and keep it simple, offer back to you what I take out of it in a layperson's type way. All the research is there. If anyone wants anything else, I'm happy to direct you to, you know, the scientists, the doctors, the cancer doctors, etc., who are stating this. The Cancer Council of Australia statement is directly on their website for people to look at. So what's really important is to figure out why this message, and I just need to keep an eye on the time actually, why this message is getting buried. And I think one of the easiest ways to understand it is if we think back, and I think most people here can kind of remember, to the tobacco industry, okay? And the sugar industry is being equated to the tobacco industry. The amount of clout and money that they have is actually said to be much greater than the tobacco industry. And if you can think to how long the tobacco industry won the PR war in regards to cigarettes not being cancer causing, being this social thing, socially acceptable and everything like that, you put that even on a larger scale, and that's what you're dealing with in regards to the sugar industry, okay? So that's why things aren't going to change quickly, because there is like this billion dollar industry behind it. And all these industries are interlinked, and government is supported by these industries. You know, big multinationals make a lot of money off of us eating their food and their products, and they want us to continue eating their products. So it's not going to be quick to change, that's for sure. And we have to understand how we can make our own changes and how important it is for our bodies. So when I talk about sugar and carbs, once you get into working with me, we know it's the same thing. So sugar equals carbs, carbs equals sugar. And that is a really odd concept for us to grasp. I think that was odd for me to grasp. Like, what do you mean the carbs are sugar? Like, that's a piece of bread, and that may be a wholemeal piece of bread. It doesn't really matter. Your body converts it the exact same way it does that sugar. Okay, so the wholemeal piece of bread is slightly better than the white piece of bread, but not much more. Okay, because your body treats it the same way. Okay, so when our bodies are healthy and young, it can do its best to churn through and convert things. Oopsie. Hey, Leah, thanks for joining. But it reaches a point where we can't do that anymore. Like, it's a compound. It's like compound interest in our bank accounts, right? Like, it only lasts until it's not healthy anymore. And I speak to women all the time in the first phone calls where they say, well, I'm a healthy fat, right? Okay, no worries. It's not for me to argue. Like, I was fat. Like, I'm not arguing with anyone. I have no judgment on anyone. But it's interesting that sometimes I have those conversations, and one, like, immensely stands out is I had a conversation with a lady who continually said she was healthy, you know, and then as you get further into the conversation, she's not doing things in her life that she liked to do, you know, moved away from all her hobbies because she's uncomfortable, etc. Yes, I'd like to be into smaller clothes, things in my wardrobe, and you start getting into it. And if we start to be honest with ourselves, you know, like, the healthy fat and the happy fat doesn't really exist, in my opinion. And I know there's be haters, you know, like, people will not like that statement. But the thing is, our body is healthy until it isn't. And we have signs, but we don't know to see those signs. So, like, you know, the skin tags I talk about with people on our first calls, you know, is a sign of insulin resistance. You can be pre-diabetic for 8 to 10 years and nobody is going to tell you. Your doctor is not going to tell you. You're going to continue. You go for your annual checkups, and most doctors are not going to have the conversation with you that you are pre-diabetic, that your signs are saying that you are pre-diabetic. They're only going to have the conversation when all of a sudden your blood work comes back and you're in the range of type 2 diabetes, okay? So, you know, then they're very quick normally to put you on insulin or put you on a pill, you know, and then you think that that's what you have to be, a lot of people. Well, it's not true. You can change it. You can make a change in most people's cases and go back into that pre-diabetic state, or even not to be diabetic after you do the work. So carbs are sugar, sugar are carbs in your body. Now, in relation to vegetables, not so much, okay? So, like, if you're consuming our vegetables when we eat keto and low carb, that is a carb that we can work with. Any carbs from anything that is derived from a flour product, a legume, you know, anything packaged, anything that is not from the outside of the grocery store, so your fruit and vegetables and your butcher, you know, your meat section is not what we should be consuming. So really important for people to start to get into your mind that sugars equals carbs, carbs equals sugar. You know, once everybody in this group is here for a reason to lose weight, so that's the mentality you should be taking, not taking the mentality of when you were 20 and perhaps you had a fabulous body and you could put whatever you want in your body, because that is not the same conversation as having the conversation now about what's going on in our body, okay? So, what is sugar? So there is 56 names for sugar, and I think that so after this, I'll post my graphic about the 56 names for sugar for you. I'll do that later today. You know, but some of those that would stand out that people think initially, you know, the white sugar is the sugar. Always the same, right? Like, I didn't put the white sugar on my coffee. I didn't put white sugar in cereal. You know, I wasn't consuming those kind of things. Hey, V, how are you? So what is the sugar? Like, and then people think that they're doing the better choice by picking the healthy stuff, like, so the rice syrup and stuff like that. So let's run through some of the names, and I'll start with ones that, so fructose and glucose, that is sugar. Okay, sucralose, sugar. Then we move into honey. Okay, it's still sugar. Its reaction in our body is sugar. It is spiking your insulin. It is spiking on the rating against the sugar. It's still spiking it. Okay, so when you are trying to lose weight, or when you are working in a keto or low carb state, you really don't even want to go to where you think is still the healthy sugars, okay? Because they're still getting the reaction in your body. If you're type 2 diabetic or pre-diabetic, it's just an absolute no zone, okay? So brown sugar, still sugar. Cane sugar, still sugar. Dextrose is sugar. Corn syrup is sugar. Date sugar is sugar. Fruit juice is sugar, okay? And we'll talk about fruit and fruit juice in a minute. Maple syrup, still sugar. They have the same reaction. Confectioner's sugar, carob syrup, sugar. Dehydrated cane juice, dextrose, dextrin, diacetylic malt. It goes on. I'll post them in there, okay? Like, when you go shopping, I have one of the, like, a rule. If you are going on the inner aisles of, the grocery store, you don't want to be buying something with really more than 3 ingredients listed, and it should be the main product, like tomato, water, okay? Salt, like that. When you get into something that has multiple names on it, I'll be putting it back on the shelf. And this goes for shopping for your family as well. So, I didn't start my journey till well after I had Zoe. So Zoe's 8. But I had in my mind when I had her that I was brought up what I thought was pretty healthy. Like, I didn't have soft drink unless it was a birthday party, and the birthday party was at McDonald's, and back then we're like poor and there wasn't many people having birthday parties back then at McDonald's, so it was a really rare thing to have any soft drink in my life, and it was like orange pop, thinking that was better than Coke, but it's not, right? Like, lemonade is not better than Coke. It's not. They're all equally full of sugar, okay? So tonic, which I thought as an adult, I'm drinking gin and tonic, and that was better than having, Ryan Coke or something like that. It's not. Tonic is full of sugar. That's kind of devastating. You need to switch to the no tonic, or into no sugar tonic, or into soda. Okay, so super important that we look at what we're shopping for our family as well in relation to the sugar. And I'm going to go into how much sugar we're having in a second. Okay, so huge amount, 56 names for sugar, and they're all sugar, and they all have a glycemic index, and they all spike your blood sugar, okay? So when you're trying to lose weight, it's off the menu. It is totally off the menu. If you are in maintenance and moving more into that whole food or into a paleo approach, then yes, you could bring in honey, as long as you are, using it in moderation, and it's not affecting your body, and it's not creating cravings. So that's a transition later on. But if you are trying to lose weight, you need to stay away from it. It's kind of like, what do they call it? That's my unconditional thing, or whatever you call it. So I want to tell you how much people are consuming sugar. So 56 kilos of sugar a year is what people are consuming, adults. 56 kilos, that's 123 pounds, okay? That's the average person is consuming 56 kilos of sugar. Do we think our body can get rid of that? I don't think so, right? Like, so then they're saying you're gaining each year based on your sugar alone. Your sugar, and carbs equal sugar, right? Your consumption, you are gaining every year, and it's going to get really hard to outrun that. Okay, exercise does not outrun this. It's the food that will outrun it, okay? Changing the way you eat. So an adult is 56 kilos of sugar, 123 pounds a year. Oh, sorry, I've said that backwards. So, yeah, sorry, that's actually the children. So the children are consuming 56 kilos, and that's 123 pounds. The adults are consuming 63 kilos of sugar a year. That's 138 pounds. Is anyone surprised at that? Like, does that surprise you? How much? I mean, that's a lot, isn't it? Like, you know, there's some ladies whose goal is like 70 kilos. So they're eating their whole body weight a year. People are consuming like a whole person in sugar. That's crazy. It is really crazy, right? Because you don't think you are, because you don't necessarily see yourself putting that white sugar on top of your food, right? But it's coming from the bread. It's coming from the pasta. It's coming from, you know, things that we think aren't sugar but are in our food. So the packaged food is full of sugar. Okay, so 60% of our diet is refined sugars. The grocery store, if you removed all the products that had sugar, they would say that 5% of the grocery store remains. Like, that's pretty astronomical. So most of the time, I don't even shop at the grocery stores. Like, I do a Costco shop once every 3 months for the things that I need, like household things. But other than that, I go to a fruit and veg shop, and I try to go to a butcher. Sometimes I'll be in the big supermarkets for the meat if we run out or something like that. But, you know, I try to avoid the grocery stores now. And if you're starting out, that's a really good thing, because then you're not going to be drawn to those other aisles. And I know people say, but I got to get stuff for my kids. Well, it would be my hope in time that you actually slightly move away from that. So if you are shopping for your kids in that range, and we'll talk about like all the food that has sugar in it that you think you're giving your kid as a treat, but you know, like that's a whole nother topic, about learning to do swaps and things like that. We need to be more mindful. As I was saying, like I got sidetracked. When I started with Zoe and I had Zoe, I mean, I was still way obese, like hadn't even come into my thought process. But Darren and I would joke that we should go on the Zoe diet. Like, you know, if it's not something I would give her when she was an infant or a toddler, then I shouldn't be putting it in my body. And we didn't give her sugar, like, and that was a consideration, because I remember, if I've gotten this fat and I actually had a healthy childhood and I actually didn't eat all that bad as an adult, and I've gotten this way, what hope does my daughter have? That's where I was in my headspace. So, you know, it's been a journey, but I actually put her first well before I put myself first. So I think it's important to just start to think about the kids. Okay, so cravings. So I think I've talked about it before, but there's studies with rats, and you can't do the studies with adults because it wouldn't be allowed. But basically, rats prefer sugar to cocaine, okay? So sugar is more addictive than cocaine. And then they have had studies of the dopamine on the human brain, okay, of what happens. And the reaction between cocaine and sugar with dopamine in our brains is almost identical, okay? So it is an addiction. Sugar is an addiction. It's designed and put in our food to make you eat more. You know, the companies spend millions and millions of dollars making that product taste perfect and for you to eat more. You can't just have one chip and you can't just have one cookie, right? Like, if we think about it, that's really what happens. Okay, so let's talk about fruit. Fruit juice is sugar. You know, like if we think back, I think back to my like parents' set of like dining, and the fruit juice was like this, it was like this little crockery, and it was like that high, right? Like that was the fruit juice cup. Now people are filling up cups like this big of fruit juice, and they're starting their day, and then they probably have more later. That is pure sugar. If for your family, partners, kids, if you're choosing to bring fruit juice into the house, for kids, I always watered down for Zoe. Like if we went out and it's a treat, and I still water down her apple juice, okay? Cut it with water because it is sugar. They are drinking sugar. Okay? You are better with a piece of fruit over fruit juice. If you're here to lose weight, then on a keto low carb, no, we would not be having fruit other than berries because of how it spikes your insulin and what we're trying to achieve. In a maintenance phase, in a paleo way, a whole food way later on, you're not getting fat if you're metabolically healthy on fruit, if you're consuming it in a way and a manner and how much you should. So the things to keep in mind is that, in a Paleolithic kind of way, in an ancestral way, fruit was not always available, okay? It was seasonal, and it was a hell of a lot smaller. I grew up on a farm, and I used to horseback ride, and we would go into the apple orchards, and apples, even then, were way smaller than they are now, right? So as our fruit size increases, the sugar increases. As our consumption that is always available and everything's always available, it's overconsumption, and it is sugar. So if you're trying to lose weight, then you're just going to be having berries, okay? And we're watching the quantity of that. Is a banana going to kill you if you are healthy? No. Is a banana going to kick you out of ketosis? Yes. A banana is your whole day of carbs. So if you love them that much and you want to fast all day and just have a banana, then by all means go nuts. But, the bananas, again, they're that big now, right? They used to be this big. So everything is bigger, whether it's commercially processed or whether it is grown. It's all through agriculture, been made to make you consume more, okay? So I have to get going. So swaps. Erythritol is my preference for swaps in regards to sugar. And if you are a baker or something like that, I make my cocktails when I treat myself with erythritol. In Australia, you can buy online erythritol. I prefer straight erythritol. You can in the grocery store get Nativia. That is a blend of stevia and erythritol. It's better than nothing. And it's readily available. Swerve in the US. Stevia unto itself. Some people don't love just stevia on its own, okay? So that's a really quick thing for swaps. I can do another video about swaps in whole cooking and everything, but I do have to go call this client. So I'm just gonna wrap up. After I finish with my client, I'll jump back in here and I will post a couple videos, names, and some documentaries that I highly recommend that you have a look at, okay? I will post the graphic for the 56 names of sugar. And like I said, I will just say, if you're unsure about keto or low carb, the one thing you can do is reduce your sugar, okay? If anyone needs help with that, I do have a sugar reduction program that I'm happy to have a discussion with you about. It can be an initial stage to losing weight. It's not, if you're over a certain age and you're dealing with hormones, are you going to get exactly what you want? I don't think so, right? But it's a great starting point. So that's a little bit of my rant on sugar. So I hope you have a great day. I'll check back in. If anyone has any questions, just message me. Feel free to message me and say, hey, Ness, this is my question. I hope that enlightens you a little bit. I hope that when you are out shopping next time, something might stick in your head, something that you maybe bought, you might look for an alternative. And if you've got any questions, feel free to reach out. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.